you came in, you put your hand on my shoulder and you said, Craig, this is Karen. I'm your wife. It's going to be okay. And she sat back and she looked at me and she said, Craig, I said those exact words when you were in your coma. So as I started processing through, as my mind started clearing and I started processing what happened, it hit me. I was like, holy cow, this is what we do for folks in our first time offers.
Hey everyone, this is Mark DeGrasse, the president of Digital Marketer, and this is the podcast that keeps you updated on everything you need to know when it comes to digital marketing, from the platforms you can be focused on to the cutting-edge tactics and tools that are working today. Today, our guest is Craig Andrews, of Principal Ally, founder and owner, and also a M3 Mastermind member here at Digital Marketer. You're also contributing a bunch of stuff. So welcome, Craig, again.
Mark, it's good to be back. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, I think you really blew everybody away with your whole, how many podcasts was it that you said in like a month or 2 months with your...
53 booked in 2 months.
53 booked in 2 months. That was super impressive. And I think that kind of relates to what we're talking about today, which is offers and how to actually create complex offers instead of just your simple tripwires or basic offers. And at the end of this episode, we'll actually give everybody a link to a first-time offer guide that you can download, but you have to listen to the end. And maybe not. Maybe we'll do it in the middle. You have to listen to the whole thing. Anyways, let's talk about that. Let's actually just where are offers at today? Because I think one of the things we're finding with digital marketing is that it's not like it used to be. You can't just upload a worksheet PDF and expect to get a zillion emails. How do you kind of, produce offers that generate results?
Yeah. And let me clarify, when we're talking about first time offer, you already have the lead. So what important thing. Yeah. So we'll do another podcast where we talk about, once you already have the lead, and let me give this context. We work exclusively with people that do high ticket sales. So that could be agencies, that could be consultants, that could be, typically it's a service business, but it could be a product business. And so that's my mindset. When I'm thinking about offers, I'm trying to figure out how to get somebody, to the close. And so like right now we're designing a custom first time offer for an agency where they're, if you sign up with them, you've made a $1.2 million commitment. So they go, once they have the lead, they're having to carry that lead all the way through until they're ready to sign a $1.2 million contract. Well, think about the due diligence you're going to do before you ever sign a $1.2 million contract. I don't care what size company you are, even if you're Google, somebody's going to look at that. It doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank. That size contract, people are going to slow down and think about it. And so their sales cycle is 18 months long. And here's the thing to kind of pause and think about is like, well, the need is not 18 months in the future. That's not why the sales cycle is 18 months long. The need is today. It just takes 18 months for them to talk them off the ledge and get the fear out of them, and build the trust. And so one of the things that we're helping them do is build a first-time offer that's priced stupidly cheap. And the idea is when they're standing in front of a qualified buyer, if you make this offer, if you put this offer in front of them, the answer should absolutely be yes, if they're a qualified buyer. If they have to go ask anybody on the planet for permission to spend that money, you've priced it too high. You're just trying to move them over the ledge, get them committed. And so we liken this to kind of a coffee date. If you think about stages of courtship, you have an introduction. That's, you're doing SEO, you're doing paid ads, you're doing referrals, you're doing direct mail. Doesn't matter. You have to have an introduction. Then you have conversation. And we hate the term lead magnets. We banished that from my company because I think I hate it because it's kind of a mercenary mindset. And I think it puts me in the wrong mindset to serve my customer. So we call them conversation starters, but that would be some of your downloadable content to get people engaged, or it could be a webinar. It could be a 5-day challenge. It doesn't matter. You just have to have some way to get the conversation started to lead to an actual conversation. High ticket sales, you're probably not going to do, hey, send them a dozen emails and they whip out their credit card and plop down 10,000, 20,000, 100,000. It's not going to happen. 1.2 million, definitely not going to happen. So first time offer is kind of like a coffee date. That's the next stage. You go from introduction to conversation to coffee to dinner to commitment to delight. So the coffee date, the DM audience should know this. They've heard it in terms of tripwire or entry point offer, which is kind of where I started. And when I first started trying that for my own business, it failed miserably. And my first time offer failed. My second one failed. My third one failed a little bit less. And eventually, after 18 months, started figuring it out. And the reality is, it has to be a complex offer to match that of where you're going. So if you go back to the client I was talking about earlier, for them to get to $1.2 million, I think they actually need two steps. They need what we would call a first-time offer, which I'm dead serious about this. We're talking about less than $500, because anybody in an organization has authority, with any decision authority, can spend $500. And then from there, it will be what we call an excite to escalate offer, which is going to be more in the tune of, I'm guessing, $20,000 to $50,000. And it's going to be more building out the overall strategy, for them or something along those lines. And once you do all that, it's easier to make that jump to 1.2 million. A lot of people aren't going to 1.2 million. So first time offer works fine. Get you there.
That's awesome. Well, and I think it sounds obvious when you say it, because how the heck are you going to get to that 1.2? I guess you could treat it like a house purchase. Like, but you bought previous houses, you know what you're doing. So that was the pre-qualification process. So I think, having that, a complex solution for what we call the conversion stage of the customer value journey in order to get to the excitement of ascending, then really you're looking at, the multiple steps. And once you get that financial commitment, then they've already broken the ice, right? Is that the intent?
Yeah. And let me, a little bit of my story. Let me tie this back in, because it really makes a powerful point. In 2021, August 2021, I went in the hospital and went in on August 10th and walked up to the desk, said, I'm having trouble breathing, except it took me a whole lot of breaths just to get that sentence out. And they pulled me back immediately, pulled me behind a curtain. And I heard my wife, she had parked the car. She came in, she's like, where's my husband? And they said, ma'am, you can't come back. You must leave. This was during COVID. They weren't letting family in the hospital. And that was the last time I saw my wife for about 2 months. And she saw me sooner. I was knocked out. 11 days later, they called her and said, we're putting your husband on the ventilator and he's going to die. And there's a little bit more to the conversation, but basically they gave her two choices. Do you want him dead in the next 24 hours, or would you like him to live a few more days and then die? And those were the two choices they gave her. They had her meet with hospice to plan the day they were going to pull the plug. And obviously docs were wrong yet again. And I lived. And so, but when I woke up 6 weeks later, something amazing happened. My trust in the doctors plummeted. It fell through the floor. My trust in my wife went through the roof, all while I was knocked out for 6 weeks. And I was sitting there talking to my wife, and for the first week and a half, my mind was really scrambled. And I believed some pretty weird things about the world that turned out not be true. And so when I started figuring that out, I called my wife over. I said, hey, I'm going to tell you some things, and I need you to tell me if these things really happened. And the first one I asked her about, I said, have we been to Louisiana? She said, no. I said, I went in a resort in Louisiana convalescing. She said, no. And I started telling her this weird story about where young ladies would come in and spray raw cow's milk at my face. That would make me feel better. And which at the time I really believed, honestly believed. And I said, well, at one point you came in, you put your hand on my shoulder and you said, Craig, this is Karen. I'm your wife. It's going to be okay. And she sat back and she looked at me and she said, Craig, I said those exact words when you were in your coma. So as I started processing through, as my mind started clearing and I started processing what happened, it hit me. I was like, holy cow, this is what we do for folks in our first time offers. During those 6 weeks, the doctors and the medical staff, they were giving me one feeling. And even though I was knocked out, I heard things, heard a lot. And my wife, while the doctors were speaking words of death and despair into me, my wife was speaking words of life and hope. And in a short period of time, it changed the whole trust dynamic between both of them, polarized them. And it hit me. It was like, when we do a first-time offer, when we take somebody through a first-time offer, or one of our clients takes them through their first-time offer, one of the elements is you come along and you help them solve a small problem together. And when you do that, you change the way they feel. And it's kind of like the Maya Angelou quote: people will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And so my wife made me feel one way, the doctors made me feel a different way. When you're taking somebody through the deliverables of a first-time offer and you're working with them, coming alongside and helping them solve a problem, it's the fastest way to build trust I've ever found.
That's fantastic. Hey everyone, I want to quickly interrupt the podcast for a special announcement. If you're listening to this podcast because you want to become a better marketer, then I want to share with you what I believe to be the most comprehensive digital marketing program on the market today. It's called the Digital Marketing Mastery Certification. You'll learn to leverage the tools and channels to predictably and profitably drive awareness, leads, sales, and referrals. Everything you need to know to become a true master of digital marketing. We'll take an in-depth look at the core digital marketing competencies, including content, email, social media, community, digital advertising, data and optimization, and more. After earning your digital marketing strategy certificate, you'll have the tools to effectively reach your target audience through a full scope marketing strategy. Get started today at digitalmarketer.com/strategy-cert. Well, I love how you mentioned, we call it the quick win. What can you solve for me right now? Not 50 years away when we finish the strategy and we implement and we get all the operations done, but what can I solve for you today and do it easily and fast? And really that one thing, because, if they're qualifying, say, 5 different vendors for the same job and they're like, oh, well, but, Craig actually already solved this problem that we had. Like that one selling point, that would be enormous in terms of making an argument for one solution versus another. And it'll trump a ton of, can they do it? Will they do it? How long will it take? Like all these things, you just wiped them all out. I love the concept.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I had somebody we just delivered a first-time offer for, and literally, this is going to sound bizarre. We're not doing follow-up. We sent them the deliverables. And say, hey, if you want to schedule a time, talk through this, here's my meeting link. This morning, bip, 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 bip. Somebody books time on my meeting link, shares it with 2 other people, got a meeting, and they already have all the deliverables from the first time offer. The only thing we're talking about is next steps. I didn't have to do the old sales technique, don't get off the phone until you schedule your next meeting, all that, none of that. None of that. We went in, we helped them solve a problem, and they're now closing themselves. I just have to be available.
That's fantastic. So could you give me an example of one of the quick wins, like say, the $500 service just to get in the door? Like what did you actually do if the whole project, like what you were bidding was actually $1 million?
So for the $1 million one, I'll have a better answer next Wednesday. We're doing a full day workshop. And that's the thing, you know what? Let me kind of pause here and say something, because this is, when I said that my first tries failed, it's because I was just pulling stuff out of my butt. Let me try this. This looks good. This looks engaging. And the only way I found to get predictable results is to follow a structured process. And when I start the morning of a full day workshop, and that's what it takes for us to put one of these together, when I start in the morning, I have no idea how the day is going to end. I have no idea what the offer will be at the end. I've never once been able to accurately predict what the offer would be. And which in many ways is nice, because when you're doing this with a client, you want them to believe in it. You want them to buy into it. And so if you come in, you spend the day trying to push your thoughts on them, if you've tried that, hopefully you haven't, but if you've tried that, I have, it doesn't work. And, and so it's good that when I walk in with a clean sheet, blank slate, they see that. And as we're working on it together, they take a high level of ownership, and it improves the probability that they'll actually use it.
Well, that's a huge tip right there, because I think, you think you're going in and you're going to give this big presentation. It's going to be so convincing and whatever. And the person who's watching it is like, I need this. And probably if this person I'm talking to can do this, this, and this, they're set. They're not going to tell you what that is unless you go through the conversational process that you're talking about. But it's very easy to forget that, they have their own intentions, they have their own goals. And if you don't consider those things and figure out what they are, then, you're not going to win most of the time, especially with $1 million.
So you asked for an example. So we have an offer, we call it FTO Squared. It's a first-time offer that we offer to somebody who might want to have us do a custom first-time offer for them. And there's 5 deliverables. So this is the thing. It's not one quick win. It's 3 to 5 deliverables. And that's really key. I discovered that in the process. Less than 3 is underwhelming. More than 5 is overwhelming. It just confuses the brain. And so the first one is we do a psychographic mapping of one of their personas and come up with the transformation language. This will all look familiar to you, how you transform how somebody feels, what they have, what their average day is like, and their status. And, we just drive home. If you want to make a lot of money, sell the transformation, quit selling your product or service, sell the transformation it delivers. And for a lot of people that I work with, they, maybe they've heard of it, but very, very few are implementing it. So right out of the bat, that's a win. They come away with new messaging that helps them sell for like an insanely cheap price. That's the first deliverable. The second deliverable is we take the services they provide and we break them into individual, and you would use, I think, the term splintering. We break them down into their smallest components that deliver value. And then we map them onto a grid. Grid removes immediate pain, avoids future pain, delivers immediate gain, promises future gain. And the hardest thing to sell in the world is the promise of future gain. Give me money today, you'll make money tomorrow. That's the hardest thing to sell. As a marketer, that's exactly why I sell. And that's why I had to figure this out years ago. The easiest thing to sell are things that remove immediate pain. And so when we start mapping things over, and this again is in our FTO Squared, this is like $500, we immediately start helping them identify little sub things that they could sell that would be a lot easier to move people to action because it addresses an immediate pain. That's the second deliverable. The third deliverable is a first-time offer delivery speed index. So once somebody says yes, how long does it take to put an offer in their hands or put an invoice in their hands and have them pay it? And there's a few other things that we break down, we score it on. And the client we're working with right now, their answer was, oh, we send it to accounting. I'm like, oh, okay. And so for that, we kind of benchmark that and we say, here's what you could use to put it in their hands while you're still on the phone with them. That's your best case scenario. Send it to them while you're on the phone. Make sure they received it. Make sure they understand it. And so we actually, and even if that's not your normal infrastructure plan, that's not your normal invoicing plan, make an exception. When you're talking about $500, it's nothing compared to 1.2 million. And so that's the third deliverable. The fourth deliverable is the first-time offer value positioning. We tell them how to position their first-time offers so they're not seen as cheap or desperate or low value. And then the fifth deliverable is a first-time offer sales playbook. And because we say, you know what, your current sales playbook probably won't work with first-time offers. We have a playbook that will help yours sell them like butter. And so right there's 5 deliverables. And you see they're each giving value. Each one of those is pretty valuable by itself. And so there's, one, it's a way of doing the value stacking. except in their mind, when they're hearing it, they're realizing, oh, wow, this is valuable. I've not been a fan of, do your value stack with, hey, this is normally $5,000, but it's in here for free. Not criticizing people who do it. Very successful people do it. It's just not my thing. But when they come to their mind, I've actually had people, I've seen their eyes kind of bug open when I get to the 5th deliverable. They're like, how much is this? And then when you come in at 497, they're like, yes, please.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, you're crossing that barrier. Well, what's funny is that reminds me of High Level, where the presentation that they gave at the last Certified Partner Training Day that we held, they actually talked about, hey, don't go in to sell our white labeled, marketing services, websites and email and CSM and all the different components. He said, go in and sell them on our automated callback. And it was just one feature that they had, because they said, if you go to a business owner and say, hey, you're probably missing 50% of your sales because you're not picking up the phone and returning the call, our system will allow you to pick up the phone. It'll get back to them right away. It notifies you when they called. That's all it did. It did nothing else. It just notified the owner when they got a call for sales. And they said, sell them on this, and it's $10 a month. And then you could say, hey, would you like this to be hooked up to your email marketing system and your website and your sales system and all these different components? It was just an easy way to get in the door with a cheap service, and then you could upsell them later on. And so I think, you're showing the value, you're showing it works. And then, once people go through the process of implementing and getting the solution, they're already working with you pretty hand in hand. Like, it's not like do it yourself. You're going through the process. They learn how you work, how you communicate, and they know your personality. And it's much harder to not hire your friend if you already hired them for something and then say, oh, we ended up going with this other person over here, even though you helped us a ton with that one solution. So I think it's genius. And the 5 components, it sounds like a ton of value, and because it is, and because it has to be. And I love that.
Yeah. And so once you've done that, the other thing that you get to do, and anybody that's selling a valuable service knows that their customer doesn't know what they don't know. And the frustration is, well, how do I communicate that during the sales process? I'm like, don't. Work it into the delivery of your first time offer. Have them experience it. And, because again, things I've tried, I can save your audience time, going around putting a finger in somebody's face and saying, you're screwed up here, 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 and here. You can try it. I've tried it. It doesn't work well. Skip that step. Go in and run a process where you ask them questions and they start experiencing the self-discovery of, oh, I hadn't thought about that. And when you're the one that helps them see that part of the world that they haven't seen before in a nice way, where you're not pointing a finger at them, that's like cool, crisp water in a hot desert. We're in Austin, Texas today.
Yes, a different type of desert, a sweaty desert. But no, that's so true. And I just really like how it sets you apart from everybody else, because everybody else is, like you said, they're doing their proposal, they're pitching everything, they're not really talking to the consumer or the person who's buying that much, and they think they'll get the contract just because their service is better, or they're more experienced, or they even have done stuff like what this person needs. None of it matters, because if you don't frame it in the context of, I'm going to provide the solution you want because I listened to you and I provide some value right up front for cheap, you don't have to spend $1 million, you can spend $500. I think it's all genius. So that's fantastic.
Can I throw something else out? Here's a little hidden magic. So I'm sure you're familiar with fast brain, slow brain, system 1, system 2, and kind of the quick explanation for your audience. For those who don't know, I imagine most of them do, but the system 1 thinking is in the back of the brain. It's your fast brain. It makes 95% of your decisions. The way I classify it is it's a pattern recognition system. It looks for patterns. And when it sees patterns that bring comfort, it says this is good. When it sees patterns that are bad, it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And if you ever think about this, if you've ever had just kind of a gut feeling, I don't know, there's just something bothering me about this and I can't place it. That's probably your system one thinking, setting off an alarm. Well, when you deliver a ton of value to somebody for $500, you've just programmed their system one thinking to view you as somebody that delivers disproportionate value. And I'll tell you the reason I started thinking about this was when I met Ryan years ago. I noticed something about Ryan. I was like, every time I see that dude, I want to give him money. I don't quite understand why. And I was like, it fascinated me. I was like, I got to figure this out. What does he do that makes me want to give him money every time I see him? And the reality is, Ryan keeps the scales unbalanced. Every time I've given Ryan money, I've gotten way more value than I ever expected. So, you're talking about M3. I'm a member of M3. I got a full year's worth of value out of our first M3 meeting in February. And that's that programming of the system one. When you come in and do this first time offer, you set in their mind, you bias their mind to see you as somebody who's always going to deliver more value than you take.
Yeah, again, it sounds obvious because everyone wants to get more value than they paid. But in practice, a lot of times, even when they're doing this kind of bidding process or going out to a bunch, they're still in the back of their mind, like, I hope this is going to work out. And I think this might not work out is really what they're telling themselves. And so they're kind of basing all their decisions off of that fear of the fast brain thinking, like, I've been disappointed before. I've hired somebody and they sounded great too, and that didn't work. And so there's all this doubt, and you could just wipe it all away when you say, hey, I'm going to do this awesome thing for a ton of value. It's going to be super affordable. And then we can figure out if you think I could do something bigger, because if I could handle this little tiny thing, I could handle a bunch of things. And now you're programmed to believe it. So I think it's all genius. I think it's very straightforward. And frankly, easy to implement, because nobody likes to, because I used to do that with government contracts for education in California, where you'd send out a contract to LAUSD and it'd be a $10 million proposal. You're going, against companies like AT&T, and you're like, what are the chances we could win this? And now you can't do the process you're talking about because it's, institutional in terms of how they process things. But if I was able to go in and say, like, hey, let's just send a few phone calls for you and we'll see how it goes, and it'll be dirt cheap, then boom, you just gave yourself a leg up. So I love the whole concept, and I know you have a free guide for it. Where can people learn more about that?
Yeah. So remember I said I spent like 18 months fumbling around before I sort of got it working. And then over the last 5 years, been perfecting it. And so we put together a guide to help people avoid some of the mistakes that I made, and I made a lot. Go to our website, alliesforme.com. That's spelled ALLIES, the number 4, ME.com. And then just add a /DigitalMarketer, all lowercase, all one word. That will take you to a page. Just sign up there. You'll get the guide, and you'll get 23 days access to our self-paced course. Now, the reason we limit it to 23 days is we know human behavior that if you sign up for a free course, you will never show up and take it. Your life won't be changed. You will not get the benefit. We want to make sure you get the benefit. And so we put a 23-day limit on it. And guess what? We see it in the analytics. People go in, they use it, they learn from it, get a lot out of the content. So that's why we put that limit on there. So just go alliesforme.com/digitalmarketer, and you can get that guide.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Craig. I think this has been a fantastic session. I think if business owners are struggling against that whole proposal process, and you've lost so many proposals, and you've had all this potential income that you've never been able to capture, I think this is a very good way to stop that cycle and really get into delivering value. Because I think if agency owners and any professional could just focus on the delivering value as fast as possible, then it'll open up so many more doors than you making fancier proposals or better pitches. Even is just deliver something right now for a reasonable price, and you'll start winning. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you so much for listening. Be sure to hit that follow button so you get notified when all of our new episodes release. Please share this with that friend who's clueless about digital marketing. And don't forget to visit digitalmarketer.com, where you can access all of our courses, certifications, and training programs. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you next time.